All right, welcome to For the Record. Today we have Zach Ryan with us from the rock band Wanderers. And before we get into talking about the Strokes' Is This It?, I'd like to say look down below and check out the links. You can find out more about Zach's music and hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments what you think about the show. All right, well, let's go back to the start of this record for you. How did the Strokes' Is This It find you?
I was at my friend's house, this guy Dustin Linker. We were watching Mad TV, so I guess that'd be a Saturday night. And they were the musical guest, and Julian Casablancas, they just like showed him in a blazer, with like a hoodie under it. He was singing all tight on the mic, and he just looked like, I was like, nobody looks like this. These guys already look, different and cool. And they started playing the song, Is This It? And it was just like, it just sounded, at the time, Limp Bizkit was like the biggest rock band,
Yeah, so this would have been like 2001, 2002.
Yeah, I think at the time I was probably, I was raised in a really religious home, so I think I was probably listening to POD or something. You know?
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So hearing that, it didn't it took you out of like what you had been listening to and sort of changed your...
I already listened to like some, I liked the Ramones and, the stuff I could kind of get away with listening to.
Yeah.
I liked some stuff that I guess I would still listen to, but it was just such a more aggressive rock was really the thing at that time.
Right.
And even the stuff I liked was like a lot of punk and stuff. So to hear something like that kind of sounded like oldies, but kind of current and new and weird, it was exciting.
And were you already playing guitar at this point, or writing songs at all? Or
I had just started playing guitar. I was playing in a band called The Rouge with my friends, and it was kind of a glam rock kind of thing. And so we were into like Ramones and Stooges and stuff, and so we were kind of dipping our toe in that water. But I think that kind of came about because of all of those bands at that time. We were in a pop punk band or something, and then it was like, okay, well, we need to be playing like rock and roll, and seeing those dudes play that stuff, it was just like, it felt like something new and exciting was happening. I remember sitting there with I had my first guitar that I got for Christmas. I remember looking at the big box by the front door in our house, and I had an idea what it was because I'd been stealing my dad's guitar and dinking around on it because I was a drummer at the time.
Okay.
And I remember looking at that box, I was like, I bet that's a guitar. And I finally opened it. It was a PV Raptor, which is like PV Strat, and it came with like a little 15-watt like solid state amp. But I remember sitting, that's when I was really new at guitar, so I didn't know about tabs or any of that stuff. I'd rewind the CD at my parents' work office after school and sit there and I think that was actually the first song that I learned was Is This It? Was sitting there trying to figure out what they were doing.
And they always had such cool little intricate like lead lines
it's like everything's kind of very, very planned. There's not a lot of jamming in the Strokes,
and I remember too, like what seemed so fresh at the time was they just stood there still when they played, for the most part, and their endings were always super abrupt, and that felt so kind of fresh and different. And their songs were always really short, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, like, and they sort of hit that reset button on rock and roll. It felt like at the time a little bit.
Oh, totally. It sounded like nothing else that was going on, but it sounded familiar. It sounded like something. Some of the songs, they had like almost like a TV show, like a 70s TV show quality to them, where it's like, welcome back. It felt like that kind of.
And they had that like Iggy Pop Lust for Life sort of bump, which you started hearing everywhere after that record came out.
It just had the same kind of welcoming feel that, some of those, oldies songs or the old TV show intros. It was just such a strange thing.
So did that sort of change your view on music or how you listen to music at the time? Like,
I think the next day, I asked my mom to, give me a ride to like the coolest thrift store that I knew. And I was just shopping through the Blazers and stuff and trying to find shirts that said like, Valley High basketball 1982, just trying to emulate them. Just
because they had that whole package, like so many of the great bands. It's like the look,
nobody,
the sound.
Nobody wore like like, especially no young kids wore like blazers casually or anything.
Yeah.
You know, I think that just their musical influence was huge, but their stylistic influence, you know, just the whole aesthetic was something at the time that just nobody else was doing. You know?
Right.
Or at least nobody in the forefront of pop culture. You know?
Yeah. And then every band I knew had a "the" at the beginning of their name, you know, for the next few years.
I remember even the people made fun of that. Do you remember that? What was that video? Remember that band Sum 41?
Yeah.
They made like a parody video that was like The Sums or something. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, they tried to make fun of it as their pop punk career dwindled.
Right. All right. So so as you started writing, then were you starting to write kind of right around the same time or shortly thereafter?
I was just into such a different mix of stuff that I think I was trying to write songs for the band that I was in, because I played with two brothers, and they were like, you know, they always had all the ideas, and I kind of was like trying to, you know, force my way into being like, I'm in charge too. You know? And
you were the George Harrison of that group.
Yeah, I was trying to find my way, and I wrote a couple songs for that group that were maybe a little more influenced by like the Hives, because that was maybe more achievable for we were a trio.
Okay.
And the Strokes thing, I really feel like you need the dual guitar thing to achieve it. But I mean, I remember, I wish I had some of those old recordings. I had like a Fostex 8-track. It was like a digital thing, and I would just, you know, sit in my room and lay down the drums, and then, you know, my dad had like a cheapo bass, and I would use his bass and try and come up with these ideas. And there were a lot of like attempts at Strokes ripoffs, but I couldn't really sing at that point, so they were like instrumental, but I was really trying hard to channel that. I actually had a free period. I graduated early from high school just because I hated it so much, and I ended up with a free period where they were like, okay, we'll give you independent music study because you have to have some sort of, you know, it's like, we're gonna let you go home. So I sat in there, and I wish I still had that final project, because I remember showing it to my band teacher, Mr. Hodges, and he really liked it, but it was total, you know, a total Strokes
but
ripoff.
Instrumental.
Yeah, just because I couldn't sing yet. You know?
Yeah. So then over the years, I guess, as you started your own bands and stuff like that, was this a record that you continued to come back to?
Oh yeah, it's always been there. I mean, it's one of those records that I listen to so much. You know, it's funny to say, like, with my mom, you know, like my mom driving me around, and she liked the Strokes too. Of all the music that I had, you know, my parents were like, oh, we like the Strokes, they're good.
Yeah.
But, you know, we would drive around, and she would take me to thrift stores and stuff where I could try and find, you know, cool Strokes clothes. And, but I listened to it, like, I couldn't even tell you how many times I listened to that record when it was still pretty new.
So it's like in your DNA now.
Totally.
Like,
and it's one I come back to every couple of years, and every time it's just, the nostalgia is like overwhelming. You know?
Yeah. So are you able to look at it differently now that you've made records of your own and stuff? Or is it just put you right back into that place you were when you first heard it?
I think, you know, with music, I have an extreme emotional attachment. So no matter what I'm listening to, like, I've been stuck on that Interpol Antics record lately, which is not too long after that one. Yeah. And just the first thing that always hits me is the nostalgia of like, oh man, I was so young, and you know, you start, the memories kind of flood, and that's how music always affects me first. But now that, you know, I'm a much more proficient player, I can I'm like, oh, I like what they did there. You know, I can kind of see it on the guitar and how I could do it. And so, you know, there are those things where you hear the production or maybe the chord structure, and but for me, it's always the first thing is the nostalgia with especially that record, just because it was such a seminal record for me and my
development.
Yeah.
So you're almost done now with the debut album of Wanderers. And is there anything in that record that you feel like you could sort of pinpoint to, like, oh, that's maybe something I got from a production idea or a songwriting idea from the Strokes?
Man, on this one, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe just the idea of even using like a Fender Stratocaster, you know, just seeing Albert Hammond with that white Fender Strat just looked so cool.
Yeah.
I remember reading about it and finding out it was like a Japanese one and really wanting one. And I have like a pink one now, but I think some of those guitar tones and stuff, it's just that set an early precedent for maybe what I wanted to hear, you know, out of a Fender guitar, that kind of bright, jangly kind of sound. I think there are inescapable influences in there. I don't know if you could directly correlate any of the songs or guitar parts to the Strokes. Maybe somebody could. I guess, you'll see when it comes out.
Yeah. So I'm sure, like, now that you're older and now that you've done a lot more music of your own, like, and you've probably dug into a lot of older music as well over the years, like, was that an album that kind of made you dig into some of their roots, or did it just kind of affect how you viewed new music coming out then?
I think that album kind of, more so than maybe some of the bands of the time.
Yeah.
Because I really liked the Hives a lot too. And I mean, that's like one of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life was the Hives. And I never got to see the Strokes live, which is really unfortunate because I had friends that did, that come when they were at like the Arlene Schnitzer Hall in Portland, and really being jealous. But that kind of opened the floodgates for like oldies music in general. That I grew up in a really small town, and so my musical discovery was limited to what I found out about through friends, or there was a record store called Yesterday and Today Music, and the guy was like a Beatles nut, and he had like Beatles collection stuff everywhere. And when I'd go there when I was a kid, it was just to buy like the new Green Day CD or something, or whatever I was listening to at the time. And so once I kind of discovered that place had like all of these, this was before vinyl had a resurgence, so people didn't really listen to records, and he went and bought a CD. And he just had an extremely good collection of like all these great old CDs, and he also carried Mojo Music Magazine. And
that was big for me too. Yeah.
So I remember, paying couldn't believe it. I was like, man, I'm paying like $13 for a magazine or whatever.
Right.
But it came with a CD.
Yeah.
And so there was one that had like an orange garage rock CD that I got right around the time that Strokes record came out, because I remember seeing like the Ramones or like the Sonics on there, and I was like, oh, this all kind of seems to be in the same realm as that. And so it just kind of really opened the floodgates to like old music. Like old music didn't seem like a novelty or something. It seemed like an art form that I needed to study, gain influence like they did from, the 60s and 70s stuff.
Oh, that's so cool. Do you have a favorite song on the record?
Oh, man, it would be really hard to pick. I would probably, Is This It was like the one that was the first one that hit me. And just that bass line is like
so cool.
Easily one of the best bass lines recorded, at least in the 2000s,
Yeah.
Either that one or
it's so cool.
It's incredibly catchy, and it's just the kind of thing that it's instant joy when I hear it. I'm just like, the day's better,
Right.
I would say that's probably my favorite. I don't know if anything could jump that for me on that record.
Yeah. Well, and probably having that special moment with that being the first song you heard and all that stuff.
One, that little weird rewind thing at the beginning with the tape, and just like, what am I getting into? This is incredible.
Yeah, so cool. Well, how would you sum up your journey with this record, or is this a journey that continues? And do you see this record continuing to play a part in your musical evolution? Yeah,
it's I think it's a band that really opened I think listening to, especially even like going to them as a band, going to the second record, some of the kind of synthy guitar tones and stuff kind of made me be like, well, maybe I should listen to the Cars, because I remember my dad liked the Cars. And it's just one of those things where they opened so many doors that, I'll always be grateful to that record for just kind of opening the floodgates for me. I think I liked Beatles a little bit before that, but even coming to the Beatles, I needed some kind of like the gateway drug to find the hard stuff. The Strokes were kind of like taking that first puff and then being like, what else is out there?
Yeah, oh, that's so cool. I love that record just kind of opened the floodgates for you.
Oh, totally. And it's a record that at any time I could put it on and feel pretty good about listening to it.
That's so cool. Well, Zach, thanks for coming by, and I hope our viewers check out those links below to hear more of Zach's music. And thanks, buddy.
Thanks for having me.